Bulaganaka, good evening and good morning to our friends joining us from the other parts of the Maritime global community. It is with great pleasure that I pass on the warm regards from SPC's Director General, Dr. Stuart Minchin, and its very best wishes for today's celebration for the inaugural International Day for Women in Maritime. History records women's participation in the maritime workforce as far back as the 9th century. Interestingly, as pirates, as Vikings, or posing as men on board ships to gain passage to destinations. In 1978, the first woman successfully circumnavigated the globe solo, and since then, sporadic records of women being firsts in the maritime sector has become newsworthy. In the Pacific, women were the best marine engineers of traditional navigation, weaving the sails of our great traditional canoes that traversed our vast Pacific Ocean. The sails of these canoes had the best nautical aerodynamics of any sailing craft, which allowed our ancestors to swiftly navigate large canoes that could carry up to 300 people at one time. These sails also informed the modern day sail we use today. So the connection to women in maritime in our Pacific is a personal one. Today, however, women represent a mere 1.2% of the global seafarer workforce. This translates to a 45.8% increase compared with the status quo in 2015. While the growth is something that we should celebrate, we must also be acutely aware of the very low representation of women in the traditionally male-dominated area. In the Pacific, it is estimated that less than 10% of persons working in the maritime sector are women and employed predominantly in support, administrative, and mid-level management roles. Of this 10%, 5% are employed in shipping companies, agents, freight, supply chain companies. Less than 2% are employed as female seafarers, serving in national fleets, and less than 1% serve in foreign-going vessels. So it's encouraging to see quite a number of women cadets here today who might increase that statistics for us in the Pacific. It is because of our universal acceptance and will to enhance the representation and visibility of women in the sector that we celebrate the International Day for Women in Maritime today. The SPC's Geoscience and Energy Division is one of the leading regional teams dealing with maritime matters in the Pacific and is the implementing body for the IMO's Integrated Technical Cooperation Program in the Pacific region. The genesis of the International Day for Women in Maritime emanated from an idea in the heart of the Pacific, to a vision creating a significant rippling effect across the world. When back in April 2016, SPC, with the support of IMO, organized the Regional Conference for Pacific Women in Maritime in Tonga. This conference recognized and adopted a resolution to promote a National Day for Pacific Women in Maritime. So why do we need to increase the effective participation and visibility of women working in the maritime sector? As a region, we are one ocean. An ocean that provides the backbone for the livelihood of a majority of Pacific people. In order to fully harness the potential that the Pacific Ocean holds for the well-being of Pacific Islanders, it is imperative that all relevant sectors of the Pacific economy are given an equal opportunity and footing to partake in maritime activities. In recognition of this truth, in 2019, transport ministers from around the Pacific endorsed the regional strategy for Pacific Women in Maritime, 2020 to 2024. This strategy has the overall objective of regional coordination and providing guidance on progressing gender equality in the Pacific maritime sector. This commitment includes improving equal opportunity and safe working environments on offshore and onshore for women working in the sector. So we have the political will regionally, and that's a huge first step. The results framework for this regional strategy includes activities that Pacific Island countries and territories may carry out in order to achieve the gender equality outcomes which lie at the heart of it. As member countries who informed the shaping of this strategy through local and relevant lived experiences, it is critical that we take ownership of the strategy and adopt, adapt, and implement it at a national level. For it is only through national implementation that we can truly make gender transformative changes in the regional maritime sector. As experts in the field of maritime who are advocating for the equitable inclusion of women in the sector, it is important that we be acutely aware of the intersectional challenges that women face in being employed in any sector, and in particular in sectors that are predominantly male-oriented. Challenges that may negatively impact on entry, on retention, and promotion within the sector. These include the women's role in the unpaid care economy, gender-based violence, non-inclusive workplaces, and lack of leadership opportunities and career pathways. If we are to make any meaningful changes to the participation of women in the maritime sector, we must first be fully cognizant of the challenges that lie within. So if you are in this room today or joining us online, you have the power to make a change in this space. No change is too small. The political will is evident at a regional level and at international level. As a region, we already have a blueprint of what it is we need to do to bring gender parity in our maritime sector. What remains to be done is for us to take ownership of the blueprint at a national level and implement it. We must ensure that our national budgets reflect the commitments we have made in our regional strategy. National governments must take the lead role in bringing about the reforms that we wish to see if we truly want to see the empowerment of women in our maritime sector. The connection to women in maritime in the Pacific is personal and one that we must fully recognize as a strength to our region in a genuine way. That's what today is really about. So on behalf of the Pacific community and its leadership, I wish everyone a happy International Day for Women in Maritime and encourage each and every one of you to bring about the change we all wish to see in this sector. Vinaka.